back to the channel, guys. So today we're going to be working on my Kubota BX. I got a couple of outer tie rod ends for this thing, left side and right side, both the outer and the inner actually. I bought them off of Messicks.com. They were the whole tie rod assembly, so it comes with the inner and outer. They're threaded together already, but they're going to need to be adjusted. I'm also going to be doing the steering cylinder mounts that are bad on my tractor. I got them from Messicks as well. I got the left and the right side. So we're going to be installing them. Shouldn't be too hard of a job. I'm going to be removing my two front tires, and that way you guys will have a little bit better view of getting in there and seeing what I'm doing, because otherwise the tire kind of blocks it. But if you guys are doing this job on your own, you guys aren't going to need to remove your tires for it. So right now I got the Artillery grapple hooked up. What I'm going to do is fire the tractor up. I'm going to curl it down, and I'm going to have the nose of the grapple down on the ground, and then I'm going to push down on the loader, lifting the front end up. I'll get a couple jack stands and set them under the axles here, and as soon as I do that, we'll rip the front tires off and get to work. Before I do that, let me get you guys over at the bench, and I'll show you guys what we're working with. Alright guys, so we're over at the bench here. These are the new tie rod end assemblies. So both these part numbers are the same. The part number to these tie rod end assemblies are K1253-16604. So that's a tie rod steering assembly, and that'll come with both the inner and the outer tie rod. So you're going to want to buy two of these, and then you're going to end up with what I got here. I paid roughly $62 a piece for each one of these assemblies. Now initially, while I had this all apart, I was going to do the upgraded boot kit on these new tie rod ends before I installed them. Here they are on eBay. If you go on eBay and search Kubota BX tie rod end upgrade, you'll see these little upgraded boots that they sell. I believe these are nylon boots, so they get rid of these rubber boots. They do come with like a 1-year warranty, I think. But I didn't end up doing that because when I ordered these off Messicks website, I seen that these were the updated tie rod ends. As you guys can see, the boot is actually different on the backside here. It seems like it's a better material than on this boot here. It's just a regular black boot, but it does, again, it looks like a thicker material. So I'm going to give Kubota the benefit of the doubt here. Hopefully they have updated these. They know it's a common problem. They know people have been dealing with these boots ripping for a long time now, and eventually that's what ends up taking out the tie rod. Once the boot rips, the dirt and grit gets inside that ball socket, and it just slowly eats away at it. So now we can go on to the steering brackets here. With these steering cylinder brackets, there is a left and a right side. The left side bracket actually has a little mount, which you guys can't see. That bracket is actually made as a support for the hydraulic fitting that goes in your steering cylinder. There's a bung where the line connects to, and this basically wraps around that bung. So this is going to be the left side, and then this is going to be the right side, which is the exact same thing, just does not have the bracket on it. Part numbers for these: right side steering bracket is K2561-16630. And the one for the left-hand side, K2561-16620. 20 on one end and 30 on the other end. So now we got that out of the way, I'm gonna go ahead and lift up the loader and get the wheels up in the air. I'm gonna zip them off, and then that way you guys got a nice view of what we're doing here. Alright, now that I got the tractor a good 8 inches off the ground, I'm going to go ahead and get these jack stands underneath. Just going to put one under each axle here. Now I'm just going to let the hydraulics down real slowly and get this thing set down on these jack stands. Alright, so before I remove these front tires, I just want to show you guys real quickly how you can check your tie rod ends yourself. Go ahead and get the tractor up in the air, put the jack stands under it like I did, and then once you do that, all you got to do is wiggle your tire back and forth, and you can see just how much play I have here. When you wiggle it back and forth, if it's the inner tie rod, you'll actually see the tie rod's actually going in and out of the socket there. And if it's the outer tie rod end, you'll see movement. Basically right in this joint here. So that would tell you got a bad outer tie rod end. For me, where a lot of my play is coming from is these steering brackets here. And you can see how this steering cylinder is sliding back and forth within the bracket. It even moves up and down, which is why I know the steering brackets are worn out. Possibly the front steering cylinder itself might be worn out at this point. I would hope that they would have made the outer cylinder stronger than the steering bracket, because if they did that, then the only thing I'm going to have to replace here is the steering bracket itself, because that's going to be a softer metal. So hopefully I don't have any wear on the cylinder itself. Otherwise, it's probably going to take care of most of my problem, but not all of it. Okay, now I'm on the other side of the tractor. Again, you can see how much movement I have here. So I got an inner tie rod bad. Again, you can see how that inner tie rod socket is moving in and out from the socket itself. And then again at the steering cylinder bracket here, you can see the whole steering cylinder sliding within that bracket. So hopefully with these new parts today, we can take care of this. I'm gonna go ahead and zip these tires off and we'll get to work. So the first thing we need to do here is remove the castle nut on the end of the outer tie rod end. And once you got this loose, we're gonna knock this out of the knuckle. And then from there, we can loosen up the inner tie rod end off of the steering cylinder. Okay, so underneath the outer tie rod end, you can see here, we got a castle nut. So there will be a cotter pin that you need to pull out of there. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull that cotter pin out, and I'll grab my impact gun and we'll zip this nut off. So to get these cotter pins out, I just grab a pair of side cutters. I just like to get at the back side of them here, and you can just slowly work them out. Okay, the size of this castle nut is an 11/16. You're gonna wanna use an impact gun if you can, because if you try to spin this nut off with a ratchet, sometimes the ball and socket might actually spin and you won't get anywhere. So if you use an impact gun, it'll usually take that off without anything spinning. Now what we're gonna do is give the stud a good whack with the hammer, and this outer tie rod end should pop right out of the knuckle here. You can see that came out real easy. One thing I can see here is that my axle is actually leaking. Looks like the axle seal on the end here is starting to leak. Not sure how long it's been that way. I know I haven't noticed any oil on the floor, so I'm gonna wipe this up and see how fast that's leaking. If it continues to leak, this will probably be one of the next things I end up replacing. Okay, so now we get the outer tie rod end off. Now we can go ahead and remove the inner tie rod end. So this inner tie rod end is just threaded right onto the steering shaft here, and you're just gonna wanna crack this loose and spin the whole thing off as an assembly here. The size for the inner tie rod end on mine is 1 1/16", and that'll go right on the nut here for the inner tie rod end. Now if you spin this without holding anything, the steering shaft is just gonna spin. So what you're gonna wanna do is go to the other side and get a pair of channel locks or vice grips on the exact same nut here on the other side of the inner tie rod end. Just make sure you're not clamping the vice grips to the steering cylinder itself, because if you mirror this up, you're gonna end up having a leak. Once you do that, they'll spin around and they'll probably hit the axle and it'll stop it for you, and then you'll be able to crack this loose. So we're gonna put these vice grips right on the inner tie rod end nut, clamp them down nice and tight, give it a quick whack and see if it'll break loose here for me. There it goes. All right, there we go. Let's get this on a bench and compare it to the new one. Okay, so here's the new tie rod and here's the old tie rod. So you can see here just how loose this was. I mean, these things shouldn't spin and move that easy. It's got a lot of play in it. You can see the boot is completely gone, which is probably what led to its demise, because all that sand, dirt, and grime got in there and basically just acted like sandpaper on that ball and socket. So now what we want to do is compare the lengths. So what I'm going to do is measure the old one, and whatever measurement I get here, I'm going to put the new one at the exact same measurement, lock down this jam nut, and then we'll reinstall it. So what you want to do is get the stud as centered as you can, get the other end as centered as you can, and measure it from the tip of this stud here to the base of this nut, or to the end of this nut right here. Once you got that measurement, you go ahead and apply that to your new one. So this is looking like exactly 5 1/4. So that's what I'm gonna make the new tie rod end at. A little bit more. All right, now right there looks perfect, 5 1/4. As you guys can see there, they're pretty much identical. So I'm gonna go ahead and tighten up this jam nut and slap this thing in. All right, guys, so we got the new tie rod end all set up. We got it adjusted to where it needs to be. But before I put this thing back on, I think I'm gonna wanna remove the steering bracket here. It looks like the tie rod end's gonna be in the way. I could probably slip it off over the tie rod end, but I don't wanna take the chance. So before I put this back on, I'm just gonna unbolt that steering bracket. We'll slide it off and we'll install our new steering bracket. So here's a good shot of the steering bracket itself. Looks like there's two 15mm bolts that hold it on. So you just loosen them 2 bolts up and that steering cylinder bracket should just slide right off. All right, guys, so the size of them bolts is actually a 14mm, not a 15mm. And then the steering bracket should slide right off the end here. All right, so here's the old steering bracket for the left-hand side. As you guys can see, there's a ton of wear on the inside here. There's no more paint left, and I could see obvious wear marks from that cylinder sliding back and forth within this bracket here. So this bracket is definitely shot. We'll get the new one out and see what the difference looks like here. Okay, so here's the new steering bracket. As far as thickness goes, they are the same. One is just black where the other one is gray. So let's go ahead and get this thing bolted back in place, and then we'll keep going on the tie rod end. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and slide this in place. Steering bracket is going towards the inside. All right, now I'm gonna go ahead and snug them up with my ratchet. Those are good and tight. So there's the steering cylinder bracket all installed. So now we're gonna go ahead and move on, finish installing the new tie rod end assembly. All right, so we got the new tie rod end all adjusted. What I like to do when I install these, just put a little bead of red Loctite on them. You don't need much. Just do a little red line. Last thing you want is your tie rod end coming loose on you, so just put a little of that on there for reassurance. And we'll get it threaded back into place here. Now if that's snug, I'm gonna go ahead and grab a wrench and tighten this up. The new updated tie rod end is actually 1.25 inches. It doesn't have to be super tight because we got that Loctite on there. Just get it nice and snug. We should be all set. Now what we gotta do is spin this down, get our outer tie rod end installed back into our knuckle here. Now what we're going to do is reuse our old castle nut and cotter pin. If you want to install a new cotter pin, that wouldn't be a bad idea. Believe it or not, these new tie rod ends did not come with a new castle nut. So that actually kind of surprised me. So just reuse the old castle nut. Should be nothing wrong with it. Install a new cotter pin and you should be all set. This doesn't have to be overly tight either. So I'm just going to go ahead and use my ratchet for this. You just want to keep turning it until your castle nut lines up through the bolt here. That way you get your pin through. So I'm going to grab a new pin here, get it in, and we should be all set with this side. There we go. All right, guys, so there it is, all installed. We got our new steering bracket in place, new inner tie rod end, and our new outer tie rod end. So we should be all set. We'll go ahead and throw the front tire back on it, and we'll get going on either side here. All right, guys, we're on either side of the tractor now. Go ahead and get these vice grips off. I'm gonna go ahead and put these on either side. Go ahead and get this cotter pin out. Alright guys, real quick, I was loosening this inner tie rod end, and what happened was it actually spun backwards and cracked my other inner tie rod end loose over here. So what I would do if I were to do this again, which is what you guys should do, is just got a few flat spots on the end of the steering cylinder, and you can get a 22mm on this. And basically once you have this one tie rod end off already, you can get this wrench on there then. And then you want to go over to the other side and crack that other inner tie rod end loose while holding onto this wrench here, and that'll hold the steering cylinder shaft from spinning. I tightened this all the way up. And then what I tried to do was hold this inner tie rod end, but when I spun the other one, it basically backed this one out. No big deal. The Loctite isn't even dry yet, so basically what I'm going to do is get the other one back in place, and then once it is, I'll tighten it down, which will tighten this one down as well. No big deal, but just want to let you guys know, so when you're ready to do this, just make sure you get a 22mm wrench, hold this down, and then do the other side. Okay, now that I got this inner tie rod end cracked loose, I can go ahead and loosen it up the rest of the way. You guys can see here just how bad it was wearing. It's actually worn down quite a bit on the inside here. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and tighten this up. And when I tighten this up, it will tighten up the other side. Alright guys, and that's the other tie rod end fully installed with the steering cylinder bracket. So let's get this front tire mounted back up and set this thing back down on the ground. Alright guys, well it's all back together. As you can see now when I shake the tire, no movement whatsoever. I was really afraid that the steering cylinder was worn out and it wasn't just the brackets, but This tells me that it was definitely the brackets, and apparently they make the steering cylinder stronger than the brackets, which is how it should be. These brackets, I forgot to tell you guys the price. They're only like $8 a piece. They're very cheap, and it's a quick, cheap fix. So if you guys have some sloppy steering in the front, you're hearing a clunking or a knocking, go ahead and attack these. Now that you've seen my video, hopefully it'll help you guys out. But we're all set here, so I'm gonna go ahead and set this thing back down, and we'll wrap this thing up. All right, guys, I got everything cleaned back up. Got the Kubota back on the ground here. Just turning it now, I could tell it's much better. I'm definitely not gonna hear any clunking noises anymore. And now I know when I go to work this thing hard this summer, I ain't gotta worry about no breakdowns. Feel bad, I've been really busy lately. I try to upload at least one video a week, and the last couple weekends I kind of got behind because I was working on my Cummins. Last weekend, I actually put in some 150 horsepower injectors into my truck. Definitely gave it a lot more power. And the weekend before that, I was actually doing some tranny upgrades to it because Dodge transmissions are kind of weak, especially when you bolt them to a Cummins. So I did some transmission upgrades, put a new built valve body in it, and did some other stuff. So I want to make sure I had a reliable work truck this summer. If you guys want to see those videos, I made a video installing all the transmission upgrades on the truck, and then the following weekend I made a video installing the new injectors. So if you guys are interested in that stuff, I was gonna post it, but I just haven't had time. And I always try to keep my channel mainly focused on my tractor, but if that's something you guys want to see, maybe I'll upload it. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. I got a lot more to come. I've got more upgrades and mods coming for the tractor. I got some coming for the cab, some new equipment coming as well, and possibly another tractor on the channel. So stay tuned, and hope you guys enjoyed the video. As always, we'll see you guys in the next one.